So it's very exciting. My book's coming out very, very soon. There are 4 days left with which to buy it. I've had a couple of people ask me why the book is so expensive. And I'll admit it's a relatively expensive book, £30, or if you're buying from outside the EU, £38. But I wanted to discuss why is that? Because I'm a person that gives a lot of stuff away for free. I'd like to think I charge very reasonable rates for seminars, and I pretty much do most of them for free anyway. So why does the book cost money? Well, when you go out about writing a book, you need to have the understanding, the skill and the expertise with which to fill those pages. And that comes from 20, 25, 15 years of fighting, of training, of going to seminars, of paying instructors, of getting in the ring and fighting people. You know, the whole point of training and building and learning and fighting and testing is to build up all of that knowledge in here. And obviously when you make a book, you take what's in here and you share it with as many people as you possibly can. In essence, you make the book so that when I take things like this, you don't have to. What I learn, you can benefit from, and hopefully take something away that benefits your training and what you want to do. So you got to understand that when you price a book, you're not just pricing the paper and the time it took you to write it on Word and the time it took you to take the pictures. It's the time it took you to find those evaluations, those conclusions, taking those hard knocks and formatting that pedagogically into something that people can consume in an easy way, in a way which is constructive to their training. So that's a very important aspect, I think, that people often overlook. Then you've got the writing of those books, and books aren't easy to write. You know, you hours and hours of edits, re-edits, testing, trying. You know, many instructors will sympathise with when you make a lesson plan, it's yay long, and you get so excited over that lesson plan. By the time that you've got 2 hours in, you've realised you've only covered a third of it. You know, committing to paper, especially paper instead of films, committing to paper, what you feel is important is so hard because you're passionate as an instructor. If you're not a passionate instructor, you're shit. If you're passionate about something, you want to tell people about it all day. You could write several books about the jab and how best to jab. You could write several books on the grips you need before you even think about teaching people to throw. So, you know, as a passionate instructor, it's very hard to curate what's in your mind. Once you've got that experience, being able to curate that into the essentials that you believe people need to fulfill the purposes of the book. Again, that's a very important thing. When you're making a small niche book that might only sell, say, 300 to 500 copies, you need to put in a lot of the graft, because a lot of publishers are only interested in the quick and easy. They'll make the minimum viable product of a book, the least quality it needs to sell, the least photography it needs to sell. You know, all of these things, they'll do the least so they can earn the best, and that's fine. And as you can see, this is probably a tenth of my overall combat library. I've got thousands and thousands of books, so I've seen a lot of very good books and a lot more very, very bad books. So you've got to understand that the hours and hours it takes to write and curate and edit, and then you're having to pay for a professional photographer, because if you don't have a professional photographer, people can't see what you're doing. We've all seen martial art books where the images are so grainy, so blurred, it's pointless, and it's very, very hard to take and understand what people are talking about where there is no picture. You do need those pictures. It's a visual thing, it's a moving thing. You do need those images for it to be effective. So therefore you need a good photographer. And again, that photographer will take thousands of photographs, and then it'll be his skill and his ability to chop them, edit them. Is this the best take? Does that show the best turning of the hand? You know, their job is to go through that and nuance it. And then you're paying for a designer. And designing a book is not easy. Making a logo is relatively easy. Making a brand is relatively easy. Laying out, setting out a book that people can follow, that's easy to read, that's easy to formulate, that's really hard graft. So you need to pay people that know what they're doing to get that done. And that might take them, say, anywhere between 2 weeks and 6 weeks to just lay that out, lay out the book. You might think it's plonking the same things in the same space, but it's really not. There's a lot of formatting, a lot of work, a lot of grading, a lot of stuff that goes into that. So the photographer, the crafting of the book as a piece of graphic design, and then you need to edit it, you need to proof it, you need to send it for peer review. So you need to send it essentially to other people that you trust that know what they're doing, for them to feed back and say, oh, I use a different naming convention for this, or I move my hand slightly different. Have you considered that? So again, you send it out to peer review, and there's time and investment in that. And you, the instructor and the writer, need to make that call as to what you take on board and what you decide to stick with. And then obviously you need it proofed and edited, finalized. All of that process you do yourself as a self-publishing author, and that's a lot of graft, a lot of hard work, and working with similar professionals. That's hard stuff to do. Then you're printing it, and printing is not cheap. So when you're printing a book and you want the quality of that book to be halfway decent, printing is not cheap. So especially when you're doing small batch runs. If you're selling thousands and thousands and thousands of the latest Twilight clone, yes, you can print cheaply. But if you want something that is robust enough that it holds itself open, that won't break down when you put your coffee on it, all of these things, that means a quality print. So at least half of what you make on any book is just the literal act of printing the thing. But I was very adamant that I wanted to make a printed book. So when I have grandchildren in many, many years' time, I can say that's mine, because by that time, all of the media designed to play videos like what we're making now will have long since disappeared, like the VHS and the Betamax. So again, printing the product is very, very important. And then when you're doing small batch runs, you are packaging it. You're going through Indiegogo, you're going through PayPal, you're finding addresses that are in the arse end of nowhere. You get people ordering from Finland that have addresses that are 5 miles long. You get American addresses which are either very, very small and get returned back to me, or very, very large. The addresses around the world are an absolute bloody nightmare. So the time it takes to find it, see if it's accurate, put the contact details on there, get it shipped out, and shipping things out during one of the largest global pandemics that human history has ever faced in the modern era, that's hard work to do, getting people that are willing to pick up, ship and send out those books. So when you look at a price of a book, and when you look at a martial arts author, don't just look at the number of pages and the number of images, but consider all the work that goes into that person's experience, into how they curate that book for you, the expense it takes to make something that's worth you looking at, and then obviously getting that book to you in a way that doesn't use evil, nefarious companies such as Amazon. So that gives you a small insight into what it takes to make a decent martial arts book. And I'm very, very proud of the Bartitsu Lab book that I made just a couple of months ago. I'm really, really pleased with it. And there's things that I've learned from that process that allow me to make an even better book in this Fairbairn World War II Combatives volume. So it's going to be another big chunky book. It's going to have lots and lots of images. It's going to be written in a technical tone of voice, a Haynes manual, if you're familiar with that tone of voice. So how you can pick up those techniques in a rather militaristic fashion and apply them, crack straight on. Learn the attributes, learn the skills, see how they're applied. And it was very, very important to me, given the aesthetic of the book, and I wanted to pay homage to members of my family that had served. I wanted to make sure it was in costume. I wanted to make sure it was in uniforms, because a lot of the techniques make sense in the uniforms. Why we do them, why we do kicks in this way, because we've got big bloody boots on. Why are we doing holds in this way? Because there's lots of things to hold. Belts, bags, canteens, there's things on the human that otherwise wouldn't be there. So it's important to see the context of those arts, to see what people wore and how that impacted how they fought. So there's a huge amount of things that go into making a book. But there are 4 days left with which to order, and you're best off going to the Indiegogo link and ordering it there. I had many people after the Indiegogo closed for Bartitsu message me on PayPal. They only just saw it, and that's fine and that's lovely, but it's a lot more faff, because then you're spending a lot more money individually going through things to send them as opposed to sending in batch. So if you're at all interested in the book, if you want to give it to someone for Christmas, if you want to read it, please do order it via the Indiegogo link. Please do order it in the next couple of days. It will mean a lot. I'm very, very proud of it, and I really hope you'll find something useful out of it. So if you've enjoyed my videos, you've enjoyed my content, and you generally like the kind of shit that I do, please take the time, investigate the book, and if you have any questions, just ask me. I will always be happy to answer them and tell you a bit more about it. So from a rather bust up Tommy Joe Moore over here, I wish you a very good afternoon.